Good morning, Gabriel.
How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you. How are you?
All
Loving the
right,
background.
I'm recording. Last thing I want to do is just run this and then not be able to record our great interview today because I'm really excited to talk to you. Um,
Same here. Thank you for having me over.
Let me give the audience or whoever's watching an introduction, which is that you are an academic manager. You have PMP certification. You have a lot of experience, decades of worth of experience in hospitality and education. You've worked at the Four Seasons Hotel and Resorts and the Hilton Hotels in Toronto. You then transition into the education sector, and you're not just passionate about hospitality and tourism, but you've also been very successful as an academic manager. So right off the bat, I just want to ask you, like, how did you go about making that transition from hospitality to education?
Well, truthfully, it wasn't something that I was planning for. Like, if I were to go back in years, my education and background was geography and political science. So the role of that position would be like, what would be my next step would be perhaps being an educator. It wasn't something that I'm keen to become. It wasn't something that I was planning to be, a teacher or instructor in that kind of position. But when I came to Canada, um, I was looking for opportunities. As a newcomer, not having Canadian experience, we had some challenges. Finding, I would say, a good role that's rewarding psychologically and financially, etc. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to go through my career in the geography and political science. So I started to find a job. And that job was working in a window factory. So working in a window factory was being, a human robot, almost like just putting things together as assembling windows. And one of the jokes that I kept hearing over and over again from one of my colleagues, he said, once you work with windows, you will never look through a window ever again. You will always look at it. So I didn't know what it means, but that saying stuck in my head over the years up to date, and I start to realize what's the meaning behind it. So when you start looking at the window, not through the window, you start to look at the quality control. You start to look at
Mhm,
how it's being done and how can you make it and how can you fix it and how can you improve it perhaps.
mhm,
So I didn't know the meaning behind it back then until just in the past maybe 6 or 7 years. So the long story short, working in a window factory wasn't something that I wanted to do for on the long run. So I started looking for, what other things I can do with my current skills. And I found that going to school and studying hospitality and tourism management was something of an interest, just because culturally speaking, where we come from, whenever we have a host or we have a friend or something, we make sure that that person does not leave unless they're well fed, they're well rested, they're taken care of and well rested. So the hospitality is within the culture without us even realizing,
mhm.
minus the being on time. The Arabic timing, I would say, this is when they say 7 p.m. they come, maybe 8 p.m. But minus that, everything else is there. So once I started working with in the hospitality and tourism, I started with the least position available at that time after graduation was being a housekeeper or a house. Actually, I was a houseman supporting the housekeepers. I would be lifting the heavy stuff, and if a guest wants a microwave, the microwave will be delivered. If the housekeeper needs towels and remove the old towels, I done that for them. And then from there, I worked also within Four Seasons as a telecommunication agent, which is what is called now as core. So you're simply involved. You have to know everything, A to Z, from the beginning until the end of every process of every type of scenario I guess will come up with, whether question, whether a complaint perhaps. And then from that position, I transitioned to work with the Hilton. And the Hilton again, I started from the bottom and worked my way up. I started as a night auditor. I started doing shuttle rides, being shuttle driver, front desk agent, senior front desk agent, and then I started to become, a duty manager, etc. Now, why was this transition there? Because the environment at the Four Seasons Hotel was more of a unionized environment, meaning you're restricted. There isn't much of growth, and if you were to be promoted, there are other senior people above you that would be getting promoted before you. There's nothing wrong with that. The union
Mhm.
was great. The environment at the hotel was excellent. So there were no complaints. Just the time to progress with your career was a little slower than anticipated. The pay was great though. And then when I moved to the Hilton, that specific property was non-unionized. So from there, this is where you would put your hands on everything. You can't say no, or in fact, you don't want to say no because you start learning. You start doing cross training, which was not an available option when you were unionized. So this is what made me build more skills, and the most skill that I have actually, I would say, uh, uh, improved was the people skills. How do I communicate with guests? How do I communicate with colleagues? How do I communicate with my other with the other departments? And I've always found that connection with the housekeeping. So I found out that, through experience, that housekeeping is my best friend department, because without housekeeping there's nothing can be done as a front desk agent. You can't check in a guest early doing unless if you ask a favor from housekeeping, and if you have that good relationship with them, they will do everything possible to ensure that this guest checks in a little bit early than expected. So let's say if the check-in time is 3 p.m., the 11 a.m. would be possible just because you have that bound, and they will prioritize your need. So throughout working the hospitality, working with the Hilton as a manager on duty, my performance was always obsolete. I've always had great reactions from from guests, reviews. You'll find my name even on Google reviews sometimes. So I found something interesting in becoming, a trainer.
Mm,
And it was unofficial assignment by the hotel to train the front desk staff to go assist and help the other departments. I went on sales trips. I've done a lot of things with the hotel. So at one point back then, it was called Ryerson University. Now it's called the Toronto Metropolitan University. There was a social event done by one of the student associations. I can't recall the name of the group, but I found it by chance on LinkedIn. So I joined,
mm,
and I started to meet with other professionals in the industry. And then one of the people actually I met with, he exchanged his business card with me, was the head of HR at another school, and he said, "Why don't you give a classroom a chance? If you have so much experience, why don't and training, etc. Why don't you bring these skills into a classroom setting?" I was like, you know what, that would be something I would be interested in. Let me see how to go with it. So I went to classroom. The biggest challenge was, how do I deliver the simple idea to students who are international
mm,
without having any misconceptions or thinking that customer service is a simple thing. It's not. Sometimes you think about customer service as a science, maybe, because you have to create that formula to have that perfect outcome.
mhm,
So I worked through that experience for actually over 5 years.
mm,
I sound too old now. And then from there, I found the opportunity to become an academic manager. So now I'm not only responsible for the student success, but also I'm responsible for the faculty success and the departmental success, etc.
mhm,
Project management also, why did I choose the PMP certification? Because I mean, all my experience, although it doesn't specifically say project management position, but all my
mhm,
experience was simply project management. So I was qualified to sit for the exam. I did study for it. I learned a lot of methodologies, and what I found different was the practice is different than the theories, and the exam is based on the theories. But it was an eye opening. So the combination of my education experience and the PMP and being in the current position as an academic manager actually is the perfect match of that kind of, I would say, environment to make sure that the department is working and running efficiently and effectively within the budget, etc.
What were some of those big challenges that you encountered? Because it sounds like you were in a lot of different aspects of the hospitality industry. What were some of the biggest challenges that you encountered?
I would say the biggest challenge would be maintaining budgets. How to address certain urgencies that could happen. Whether if we were discussing my current position, we have some challenges with maintaining, let's say, the budgets. Sometimes you need to focus your attention on the student success, but in the same time you need to balance with the school policies and restrictions.
Mm,
The restrictions that we have are very firm, and sometimes you will have to find that, I would say, balance to make sure that you're not breaking the policies, but in the same time you're finding the best solution and roadmap for this student, for example, or for this. group of students to focus their attention on their success on the long run. So I would say these are the two main challenges.
Absolutely. Student success, of course, being a key part for I think every academic, right? And so when
Absolutely.
you're talking to new students when they're just coming in, I understand you work with a lot of international students, a lot of them coming into to Toronto or to Canada for the first time. Um, what are some of the key factors of success that you really try to drive home to them?
There are so many, but what I would say is just be open-minded. Open-minded. We're not talking about culturally open-minded, but open-minded for the opportunities. Because at the
Hmm.
end of the day, the way my parents did it and my grandparents did it. So if you think about my grandparents, they've had only one job for 30 years and 40 years, and that all what they've done. If you look into my dad, for example, you will see that he had multiple positions. Let's say in the past 4 years, he did maybe 5 to 6 positions in total. But when it comes to us, you will find that we have a progression, growth progression, working in similar industries sometimes. But because we're focused on what would be in the next 10 years, so the
Hmm.
patience that we have right now, unfortunately, is not available for the new generation. So the newer generation would assume that okay, if I graduate from a course that has management title into it, then I'm expected to be hired as a manager. The answer, unfortunately, is not. Although you are studying, let's say, hospitality and tourism management, that does not
Hmm.
qualify you to become a front desk agent. You still need to learn, the overall operations of the rooms division. You need to understand the housekeeping. You need to understand the front desk. You need to understand what's happening in the back end of the hotel. The back office,
Hmm.
sales.
Hmm.
How does the general manager set the rates, or the sales find rates? So, what are the opportunities of making money? So you have to understand that, and then you have to jump into the food and beverage. You have to learn more about the food and beverage, and now you start to talk about revenue management and how do you combine both. And this is what qualifies you to become initially a manager, whether if you decide the food and beverage or the rooms division. But the fastest route is through the food and beverage to become a general manager. Let's say in the next, instead of spending 25 years or 30 years, maybe it will take you 18 to 20 years to become a general manager. So there
Oh,
is a shortcut.
oh, wow. I mean, I do. So I do get the perception or perspective see that like it's a very transient industry, right? So like people come and go, there's a lot of transition. And to me it would seem like it's worthwhile for at least these companies to try to invest in their employees, right, to try to retain them because um, like having that experience of being able to master a specific domain and then being able to enhance that experience, right, is would you agree with that statement that the customer is always right?
Um, for that, it's a debatable question, but what I can say is yes and no. From the operation side, the customer is always right, but
Hmm.
we know it that sometimes the customer is not always right. When it comes to someone who is, let's say, a chronic complainer. With all due respect to all the guests or customers, etc. But some people, they unfortunately, they wake up in the morning and they wonder what they're going to complain about. But um, you know, but sometimes, when we say the customer is always right, is because we
Uh,
want to ensure that the customer is leaving the property and leaving the industry, sorry, not the industry, the establishment, satisfied and with the
mhm,
guarantee of them coming back.
mhm, mhm,
So when someone says, let's say I'm a chef and I made this dish, you ask for this dish, and I made this dish for you, and you come to me like, it's not up to my satisfaction. I did not enjoy the flavor, the profile of the flavor or presentation, etc. Well, you know what? The presentation, my idea, as a chef, I've been working as a chef for maybe 30 years. I'm like, what are you talking about? The recipe is my grandma's recipe. It's wonderful. But you can't say to the customer you're wrong because you don't know how to taste food, or you can't do that. So if the customer is not enjoying the food, then you give them alternative, and then if that alternative does not work, then ask them what would you like to have and how would you like to be done. So the moment they tell you how they would like things to be done, trust me,
mhm,
99% of the time the customer will leave happy, and they will be even happier because they have not been charged for the past two meals. And then, you ask them, when are you coming back? If you want to come back, ask me or ask Gabriel. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure that everything's being taken care of, and we'll give you extra attention. So now we have created a
Mhm.
profile. Now we know who that guest is. We know what their expectations are. So upon their return, now we know who that person is, and we will do everything possible based on what we know already to make sure that this person comes happy, enjoy their night or enjoy their evening or enjoy their stay before they leave. So creation of that profile is very important for us. And of
Mm.
course, with the integration of technology, we don't write things on piece of paper anymore, but rather everything is being, entered into our property management systems. You will go into the guest profile, their past visits, how many times they stayed with your property, with the enterprise, or
Mhm. Mhm.
globally, and where their money went, food and beverage, restaurants, when did they come, how frequent they are, what's their loyalty status, if they are a member of the loyalty program. So and then promotions and sales. So everything is connected together. So is
Mhm.
the customers always right? I would say yes.
I mean, I'm glad you brought up technology because I feel like that's like a double-edged sword. And there's two parts I want to unpack in this, which is the first
Hmm.
part being how technology has transformed the hospitality industry, but the other part being, well, I mean, I see that in two parts in the sense that on one aspect, like you mentioned, on the hospitality side or the property manager side or the one offering the service, you can now track your customers. You can now see where they're spending and you can make a digital profile about them. On the other hand, too, customers now have an impact on the digital profile of the business as well, right? They take one video of an employee being disrespectful to them, they make it go viral. There was that case of, for example, I think it was United Airlines where they tossed a musician's guitar as they were putting it on the plane, and then he wrote a song about it because they broke it, and then they ended up having to buy him like just those types of things, right? So like on one hand, it empowers the business, but on the other side, it can also affect the business.
Correct. I mean, there's no denying that, it's a double-edged sword. But if you look at it from the operation side, if the employees or the organizations, uh, you know, are well aware of the outcome of their doing, let's say on a day-to-day basis. We're not talking about micromanagement, but if you're aware of what we're doing next in the next, 10 minutes or 1 hour, and we know the outcome, and if we eliminate that, tossing of the guitar, then that video will not go viral in a negative way. But if the person were to pick up that guitar nicely and take care of it, and perhaps, consider it as his own guitar. I'm a musician. I play the violin, and my violin is estimated to be anywhere between 200 to 300 years old. It will never go it will always go with me on as a carry-on, and I will take care of it more than I take care of anything else. So to see someone, and of course, I have trust issues with someone holding the violin to begin with. So if
Mhm.
someone were to volunteer and take it, not volunteer and give it away, and they say, I will take care of it, and I will keep an eye on them, and I record them on my phone, and they truly take care of it, then that video will be, posted on social media saying good things about the airline, handling my
Mhm.
instrument,
Mhm.
rather than tossing my. So it's all about decision making. What are the decisions that you do? Is the company aware of, perhaps the person needs training, or perhaps the person is having a bad day? We are all human, right? So
Mhm.
this is the one side of it. The other side of it is when it comes to operations and you have technology available, it's actually available for us not only to enhance the customer experience, but also to have to gather as much information as possible. Because the more information we gather, the better results we will deliver or will provide to the guests, and have a better outcome simply. Um, so it's all about the convenience. Did it really eliminate any positions? Sure, it did.
Mhm.
Like in the past, if you remember, there was an employee. I was not born at that time, but there was someone who would be dressed in a way, and that job is only to operate an elevator, to pick,
Oh.
from one floor to another, and that was their job. But that position is no longer available unless if the hotel is really, boutique and they have that kind of environment.
Mhm.
You would also look into other industries where you have the telecom control board. This is where you had people, answering calls and they're plugging cables, etc. That has been
Mhm.
eliminated. In fact, nobody, I would rarely see someone with a house phone. They're always using smartphones, and they don't even sometimes use their lines. They use applications like, social media applications to make phone calls and video calls, and it's excellent quality and it's cheaper. And sometimes all what it costs is the monthly subscription of internet simply,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So so is the technology going to eliminate the human factor of interaction and all that? The answer is no. Many
Hmm.
hotels in Japan, they were pioneer at the time, and they had everything robotic. Unfortunately, that was not a success because at that time it was like ahead of their time. uh, people did not know how to use it, and if they had to complain, they couldn't find out who to speak with. And still, you need to have a housekeeper to clean the bedroom and put the sheets on. You don't have robotic arms in in the bedroom putting things
Hmm. Hmm.
together. The cleanliness level, etc. um, but did the technology now serve a better purpose? The answer is yes. Now, if you look into the Hilton as an example, just the one example, they have the Hilton Honors application. Through the Hilton Honors, you can make reservations, you can do the check-in, you can even select your room, your preferred room, and you can change your preference. You can see the room on a 3D map on your phone, and then you can select that room, and then you can do the check-in on your own, take an Uber, go to the hotel. You don't have to pass by the front desk. Tap your phone, NFC technology, open the door, and go check in, and then express checkout the next morning. You don't even have to see anyone,
Hmm.
whether you paid in advance or you just paid now with your Apple Pay, as an example, or your mobile payment,
Hmm.
system. So, um, is it convenient? Yes. Is it going to eliminate the front desk agent? No, because you still need to have someone to do the arrangement. You need to have
Hmm.
someone
Hmm.
to cater to, if Gabriel's coming here for, let's say, a romance package. They need to have a champagne bottle, a petal
Hmm.
of roses, or whatever their needs are. You need to have someone be there. You need to have that front desk agent to let's say, we call the front desk agents are the captain of the ship, because they're the one who
Hmm.
tell people what needs to be done and how when it needs to be done, and they follow up on that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I hope it wasn't too long on answer, but there's so much into it.
No, I mean, there's a lot to break down here, and you can't. It's not something you can just like summarize into like one single aspect. And what I'm getting at, what I'm hearing from you is that like it's definitely a job of service. When I say service, it's not just providing a service, but also like a service of yourself. Like you're giving a part of yourself to someone's experience. And like those small details of like how you mentioned like a romance package, having the champagne bottle, the rose petals, right? That's work. Someone has to put the
Correct.
time to do that. And
Correct.
I think to me it seems like it takes a very unique individual to be able to want to give that unique special service to someone. I think back to like when I once interned at Walt Disney World, which wasn't my favorite experience, but like the people who really enjoyed it were the ones who were like really willing to give themselves to the company culture, to the guest experience. And I'm glad you mentioned the robotics aspect, because that's something I wanted to kind of explore with you. And like, yeah, this thing here, right? Like this.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
I gotta select my choices. Yeah, I'm happy. Sure. This this looks wild to me. Like, I I I don't know. Is this the one you were talking about?
Correct. Correct. This is the one I was talking about.
I
Imagine
mean,
trying be greeted by a dinosaur, or
I mean, I think it's really. I love that. I think that's really cool, especially the Dino robot. That's a win for me. But I can definitely see how that's a little off-putting, right? For maybe some guests who are just like, let me find the manager.
correct. I mean, here's the thing: if you were to visit this hotel once just for the experience, sure, but are you gonna repeat your experience again? Let's say as a business traveler, if you're traveling with a kid, maybe, but as a business
Yeah.
traveler,
I mean, you're right. It seems like it's more of an experience, right? Rather than like, because like business travelers, for them, it's like the hotel is just a place to just rest, right? Put up your coat, go to bed, wake up the next day, do work, right? This like just
correct.
seems like a full-on experience right here, where they have. I mean, they clearly don't have any robotic beds. I'm just skipping ahead here, but was this the only hotel that did this, or are there others coming out in the industry as well?
Truth coming up, I have no idea. I didn't look into that because now the technology has been shifting from having the actual physical robots into having this soft copy of robotics. This is when you have the AI, you have augmented realities, you have virtual realities that's being implemented even in sales. So I don't think this will be copy pasted as a successful a concept to be repeated and have multiple branches around the world. um, but let's compare this experience with a human touch. Now,
Mhm.
first of all, we have to I have to say from my experience that 90%, I would say, I mean, let's not say, give a percentage because I don't have the specific study for that, but from my experience, from out of 10 guests,
Hmm.
nine out of which would be business travelers. The business travelers are the least people to complain
Mm.
because we already know what the mindset of the business traveler. The business traveler needs to check in early sometimes. They might have a late flight. They will be late check-ins, like after midnight. So make sure that their room is not being sold out or given out
Hmm.
to someone else. Make sure that if they come on time or they come before the check-in time, to have their luggage available, have their room ready, get their luggage upstairs, or let them know if they're still waiting in the lobby, give them access to Wi-Fi, give them a high floor, away from the elevator, away from noise, away from traffic. Simply, these travelers, they just need to have quietness to work,
Mm.
whether remotely or they have meetings, and they want to have a good night's sleep.
Hmm.
Um, sure, they might need to have a breakfast in the morning, but that's not always the case. They're always on the run. However, the high percentage of complainers comes from the leisure, because the leisure, they're always looking for the comfort. They're looking for one extra step.
Hmm.
If I ask for a cheese platter, it doesn't hurt to have, perhaps something accompanies that cheese platter. Could be fruits, it could be a cold beverage, etc. So whenever we look into the profiles and see who is coming to check in today, we immediately go into that mindset. Okay, this is what we need to do for this guest. We look into their profile
Hmm.
and then we
Hmm.
match it. And this is what I need to do for this guest. So immediately when we have, there was one practice that I've changed actually when I was working at Hilton, that we have to do the process of check-in. Welcome the guest, mention their name at least 3 times, have their keys ready already in advance, have the room
Oh, wow.
assignment done in advance, and all that. And then explain the hours for the breakfast, the hours for the lunch, the hour for the dinner, the hours for the business center, the pool, the gym, and nearby restaurants and the concierge. So much information.
Yeah.
Yet
Yes.
the the quality to deliver this, or actually, let's not say the quality. We were required to do all this within 2 minutes, because anything more than two
Wow.
minutes is too long, and anything less than 2 minutes, the guests will feel like they're being rushed. So imagine you're trying to mumble so fast, and sometimes you get into this autopilot where in your head it sounds perfect, but actually you're just being gibberish, right? Nobody hears, nobody gives attention to what you're saying. So now this is what, when we changed, we said the moment you see someone walking in and they're coming from a nearby business, let's say a corporate, they have a corporate account with us, then don't even mention the swimming pool, don't even mention
Mm.
the nearby restaurants. Tell them about the gym, tell them about the business center, tell them about the concierge. If you have a business, if you have a leisure coming to your hotel, a couple with a kid, don't tell them about the business center, but rather tell them about the swimming pool, because this is what they're coming here for,
Mhm.
unless if they have a business meeting with that child, with another child. So doesn't make sense,
Mm.
right? So now we start
Now,
to go ahead.
yes, so you have to wrap it up in 2 minutes, cater to the experience of the individual based as to what their needs, and identify that in advance.
Correct.
That's
So
powerful experience.
this is the only way to do it. And to have a successful business, and there's something very important that I mentioned here, was recognizing the guest at least 3 times by name.
Mhm.
um, when I met with Azador Sharp, the founder and CEO of the Four Seasons Hotel, I asked him, I said, what made the Four Seasons so successful? I mean, the Four Seasons is a Canadian company. It was a small motel, luxury motel, in downtown Toronto. It's like one of the worst neighborhood in Toronto. But he had this concept. He said, if you have the idea, the money will follow. So the most important thing to have a successful business is to have the guest recognition. You need to have the level of service, and guess what? The third one, location.
Smile. Oh,
Location.
location.
So you need to have the location in a heavy traffic city. You need to have the
Yes.
expected level of service, and you have to recognize the guest. The moment you master those 3 components, this is when you will have successful business. So this is how we always, at least personally speaking, that was my personal experience, and this is what I go with. So going back to the human touch, recognizing the guest. When you see Gabriel coming back to my hotel, instead of just me saying "Welcome, Gabriel, welcome back," it's so nice to see you again. Everything is ready for you. Here's your room keys, please. Proceed to the elevator, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But imagine if Gabriel goes to his room, or Gabriel did the express check-in, or still met with the front desk agent, going to that room, finding that cheese platter, and then have that handwritten note to welcome Gabriel, and if you need any assistance, please call me. directly to this number,
Mm,
not dial zero, but call me to my specific
right.
extension. So that will be the human touch and making people feel welcome, because at the end of the day, they're coming to your home. They're not coming to the company.
Now, how do you translate all of this to the classroom? Because you have to bring this into the classroom for them to experience this. On one part, it sounds like the best way they're going to learn this is by doing it. But how do you, in your programs and when you teach it, how do you bring all that experience into the classroom so that students can really get that firsthand
I can summarize it with only one word, and this word is satisfaction.
satisfaction?
So if the student paid their tuition to receive the service, which is called education, and they receive that education to the point where we focus our attention on the student's success, and the student was able to complete their program and go do their co-op or practicum, and get their certificate. And the majority of these students are international students, so they're always looking at opportunities like the way I was looking for opportunities when I came to Canada in 2006, rather than going straight to general labor. But and the student receiving, instead, student is receiving guidance and giving them advice and follow that advice. That student will be satisfied with the outcome. They will be satisfied for their decision of coming to Canada. So that
Hmm.
doesn't only satisfy the students, but also satisfies me as a manager, because that reflects on me, on my performance. If what's the point of me being a manager, maintaining my deadlines and all that, but students are complaining, or faculty complaining, my colleagues are complaining, and the performance, in comparison, is not up to par. So that does not reflect good on me. But if I'm putting the hard work, although we do some mistakes here, I mean, we're human, students do
Hmm.
mistakes, but if everybody else, or into overall, is the overall environment is satisfactory, then mission is accomplished. So the satisfaction, uh, as a guest, to check into the hotel, you get what you need, you want. You do receive it. Going to classroom, same thing. You go, you get what you want. Work, go get what you want. Not go and get what other people wants for you, kind of thing.
I like how you put that. Education is a service. Yes. And
It is a service. It is a service.
so I really appreciate you coming in. And I have one last question for you, which is what drives your curiosity?
Oh, what drives my, like, I always try to look what's gonna be next. What's the next? What's going to happen? I mean, now I'm curious with the implementation of technology, like how the AI and the artificial intelligence and how the augmented reality are playing role in making decisions. This is, instead of going to a travel agency and they show you this outdated brochure and they say, this is your cruise trip. Well, I've never been to a cruise. What if I go on and be disappointed? Well, or if I want to go to this restaurant and I like to eat chicken all the time, and then suddenly someone is asking me, well, try this vegetarian option. It tastes much better than chicken. I'm like, I would love to. It looks great, but I don't want to be disappointed, so I'll stick to my comfort. But with augmented reality, suddenly now you wear a headset, and then you will see the experience hands-on, and based on that, you will decide, because now you know what you will be getting after you make that decision. Um, so what drives my curiosity is I want to know what's going to happen next. And I'm not a technology expert. I work as basic as human interaction and making sure everybody's is happy and they're comfortable and leave a smile on their face before they leave and come back. Um, so I'm pretty sure there's so much happening behind the scene before that final product is coming. But I'm happy to see this augmented reality coming in, and this is what drives my curiosity: technology.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Eddie. It was a pleasure connecting
Thank
with
you.
you. And again, thank you for your time and for all your insights.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me over, and I'm looking forward for future meetings again.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I don't know how this will go, but so far it's been going pretty well, and just having like an education format and focusing on education. But I really appreciate everything you shared, and I I I I agree with you. It's very exciting to see where this technology is going to go, and especially how it's going to impact many different industries.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Take
Thank you,
care, my
Gabriel.
friend.
Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.